And Laura, does that show up for you? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now I can see it. Now we're good.
Okay, great. So just to make sure everybody's in the right place, we are talking today about the COVID-19 Agricultural Assistance Program for dairy assistance, and this presentation is specific for dairy producers. A quick agenda. Going to go over a few details here in these slides real quick, and then we have Joanna Lidback joining us from Farm at Wheeler Mountain, and she's gone through the application and successfully submitted one already. So she's going to share a little bit of her experience with that. And then we are going to go over to Laura Ginsburg, who's going to take us through some of the different parts of the application, highlighting some areas that are tripping people up or slowing them down, and share some suggestions and tricks about that. And then, as I said, we'll have a section dedicated to Q&A at the end of the presentation. So any specific questions you have, feel free to either hang on to those for the Q&A, or if you're on your computer, there is a chat feature, and it's in the same toolbar as a microphone. So you can go ahead and submit questions into the chat throughout the presentation. We have someone monitoring that, and we'll make sure that we address those questions at the end. This is, as I said, being recorded, so it will be up on our website in a day or so. Just some real quick background. This program ultimately was funded by CARES Act, the federal CARES Act, which allocated $1.25 billion to the state of Vermont, which was then divvied up into several different programs across state agencies to help mitigate the economic harm from COVID-19. So this program was created by S351, subsequently Act 138, and it allocated $25 million for dairy assistance to producers and processors. The funds are designed to cover market losses and economic impacts that are directly associated with COVID-19. And one thing that I wanted to point out, we're hearing that there's some confusion around the name of the program, it being a grant program. So this is a grant program, but it is not like other programs in that it's a competitive program that would require you to submit a proposal for what you want to do with the money. It is not designed that way. It's designed as direct payments for economic harm suffered. So if you're eligible for the program and you can demonstrate economic harm, you will receive payment. You won't have to go through a competitive process. And then some important dates. The application is currently open. So applications are coming in on a rolling basis, and the review is happening on a rolling basis as well. The application deadline is October 1st at 8 a.m. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. And then payments are also being issued on a rolling basis as those applications are being reviewed and approved. This is just a quick definition as it pertains to this program of what a dairy producer is. So pretty obvious, but wanted to make sure that people were aware. And then in order to be eligible for dairy assistance funding, the following must be true. So you're either producing milk on March 1st and subsequently ceased production. You are currently producing milk. You can accurately demonstrate economic harm that occurred or accrued on or after March 1st and before December 30th of 2020. And then you're not a recipient of another state grant from a coronavirus relief fund. There's one small exception to that we'll discuss later. And then just to go back to the second point here, if you have ceased production, you need to have a good faith plan in place to restart production, and that would make you eligible for this program. This is just a list of common losses and expenses. Obviously, most of folks' losses that are being claimed are due to milk payments and market disruptions. So that tends to be the bulk of what we see, but I wanted to point out here that there are numerous other things that can be claimed on this application. So PPE, personal protective equipment, different supplies and equipment that was purchased in order to accommodate social distancing or create a safe sanitary workplace. Anything that is directly tied to the COVID-19 pandemic can be claimed as a documented loss or expense so long as you can justify that and you can accurately document that. An important point here at the bottom, any expenses or losses that you claim in this application cannot be covered through other federal, state COVID-19 relief funding. Here we have the funding caps. So it's based on the farm size. Up to small farms can receive up to $18,300, and then all the way up to large farms can receive up to $100,000. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and turn it over to Joanna to talk a little bit about her experience. So Joanna, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. So I submitted my application. I started the application and I could save my progress. And I know a few questions that I had popped up, and I tried to follow use the email because it wasn't a pressing emergency need. So I used the email to submit a question. And it took 2 days to hear back, but I know that was the beginning of the application process, and I'm sure that the folks at the agency were swamped. I would say, for those on the call who don't know me or my farm, we're Agrimark producers, though I will say that I have worked as a consultant in the past, and I currently work for a farm that is a DFA producer as well. And so I'm familiar with both styles with respect to reporting and what you see and what you get and what you can get and what's easy to get. So if you can gather up the information, Agrimark has those great yearly summaries. It's all on one page. I don't know that you get a yearly summary from DFA except you have to go month by month. But I think going through the application and step by step, and there's a few key areas where we've faced losses in dairy. It's not just the price loss, but both of our co-ops have instilled supply management actions, and they've limited how much production we have. Um, so that's certainly something that you can claim. I know that there was confusion at the beginning with respect to how to claim that, and I know that Diane and her crew added the specifics on step by step on how to do that to their FAQ document, which is on the website now. So for my farm, for our plan, I wanted to go through the application first and lay it all out, and get what we could as far as the price drop went for those first few months. And our plan was to circle back and do a second application because that's part of the rules. You can do that. And now that I've been through it once, know what to expect. I know how much time it's going to take, and I know what I need to record the production loss. Now, on top of that, if you've gone over your base production, you are also penalized. And I know that there's specific line items for DFA and for Agrimark that shows it shows as a negative number. It's essentially negative revenue, but it's considered an expense because it's something coming out of your pocket essentially, um, uh, and you know, in accordance to the co-op rules. Additionally, I know back in May, DFA had the separate line item, separate from the overbase. They had a COVID fee, essentially a marketing fee that they called it, so that would be eligible as well. Yeah, so I know that one thing that helped me is I had another farmer that I bounced ideas off of, who's relatively close to me. Same, actually, yes, it is Andy Birch. Oh, there's Andy. I see him. um, anyway, Andy and I kind of went back and forth, and it was really helpful to have another person going through that process for the at the same time, you know, to kind of, hey, did you do this? Hey, how'd you handle this? And oh, I asked Diane, and you know, whatever the case may be, and we shared answers that way, sort of to maybe, you know, free up Diane a little bit, because I'm sure she's in great demand these days, as most days, and to also, you know, just compare notes, I guess. You know, if you're out there and you don't have that, you don't have someone who, you know, you feel comfortable talking to about this type of thing, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm easy to find, as people have told me in the past on social media and whatnot. That's a little unnerving, but I am out there. Shoot me a message on Messenger if I can help. I'm happy to help or coach you through it. You know, just from the farmer side versus, you know, versus the rule makers, the agency side. So yeah, I think I was just sort of anxiously waiting to see if the deadline was going to change from September 30th. And I know that Diane or Trevor or Laura has something to share with you about with respect to that, and how to accommodate September milk. I really want to impress upon everybody to, if you haven't already applied, to do it, because as was indicated at the beginning of this whole thing, and especially in June when we saw class 3 prices skyrocket, first of all, we didn't get to appreciate all of that because we had the largest negative PPD we've ever had. But what they did say, what the economists did say, was that we would see volatility. We would continue to see volatility, and that is the case. It's not looking like a V-shaped recovery. It's looking more like a W. So in our latest Agrimark forecast, we're seeing milk prices going back down again, for September and October. So I think if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer, or again, feel free to reach out. I'd rather see this money come to us in dairy than anywhere else, because Lord knows we need it. So
Thank you so much, Joanna. I just, one quick question for you. Do you have a sense of sort of ballpark how long it took you to work through the application?
well, I think it was helpful to gather up all my information ahead of time, and then to sort of have another window open to the Agrimark portal, online portal, so that you could kind of quickly reference back and forth if you needed to. But it's because I chunked it out too. I would expect that it probably took me an hour, all said and told and done, you know, going through it and reading it, asking my question, going back to it and finishing it. And I don't expect, now that I know what to expect, I don't expect it will take me more than 30 minutes to do the second round.
Great. So It sounds like Joanna may be able to hang out for a little while. I really appreciate you making yourself available to answer questions, and very nice to offer to have people get in touch with you. I'll just point out too that there's a ton of resources and information on the program website, people to contact, phone numbers, emails. So there are lots of channels open to people who may have questions or need assistance. I'm going to turn it over to Laura Ginsberg now, and Laura's going to share her screen and walk through some of the application itself so that we can see what it looks like and get some tips on how to move efficiently through it. So go ahead, Laura.
Hi, Trevor. Thanks. And thanks, Joanna, for joining us. That was some great information that you shared, and appreciate your feedback. So I'm going to share my screen now. And Trevor, if you could just let me know when it shows up.
I can see it.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is the application web page on the agency's web page. I've put it in the chat for those that were able to log in via Teams. And this is the page where you'll find a ton of information about the program, the ability to register and continue your application. FAQs are at the bottom, and just lots of different updates and information. So this is an important page to be able to navigate to. The very first thing you're going to do is register to apply. And you'll come to this page, which has some narrative on it. And as soon as you read it and understand it, you'll just click through a number of questions and get yourself registered. As soon as you do this step, you do not need to do this again. So if you find yourself on this page, instead of the login page, just make sure that you go back to the agency webpage and click on the correct link here. So once you've registered, you want to log in to continue your application. That will take you to a page that looks like this. When you register, you'll develop your username and password. Your username will be in email format. Whether or not it's your actual email doesn't necessarily matter, but that's what most people use, and that's totally fine. If you find yourself here and you haven't yet registered, there is an opportunity to register here in the bottom. So you can just log in, and I'm going to go to mine. So now I've just moved over. It's an identical page, but this is our test application page. So you'll see that I've tested being a number of different farms and creameries and fake businesses. So when you very first log in, you'll not see anything in this box. You'll have no applications. And what you want to do is click on Start a New Application right up here. And if you are a dairy producer, you find that box and click Select, and it will bring up a new application. I have started one for the purposes of testing and to show you. So I'm acting as Barnes Black and Whiteface Ranch number 2. So if you're on the call or you know them, this is not the real application. This is just me running through a test to make sure that everything is working on the back end. And so when you start an application, it will show up here. And to log back in, to restart where you're at, you just click on the edit action, and it will open it up for you. So the first thing that you'll do is put in your unique dairy ID number. That was information that was sent out to folks in June of this year. So if you don't have that, feel free to contact the agency and we can send it back to you. If you sent in a W-9, that information will preload through here. So you just need to read through this page. Essentially, if any fields are not grayed out, you can enter information. If it's got the little red asterisk, it is required. So you read through it, confirm that this information is correct, and click Next. Every time you come back to this page to restart your application, you'll have to select Yes and move forward. So you're just reconfirming that the information hasn't changed. Then you work through dairy producer eligibility questions, which I won't go through here. They're very straightforward. And if you answer any of them in a way that would make you ineligible, it will indicate that. And at any point in time, you can go back to your dashboard. We do recommend that when you work through a page, click Next, bring up a new page, and then go back to your dashboard, because that will save the information that you've entered. If you don't click Next before you go back to dashboard, your information may be lost. So this milk production information page is one of the areas where we first notice that people have a little bit of difficulty. So what you need to do first, you'll see that there's nothing here on the table. You add milk production information. This brings up a pop-up window. Your browser may block pop-up windows, so you'll see a notification. So if you can allow those, then you'll be able to see this. The first question is, what federal base or blend price did you receive for January 2020? And for all of the milk information that you're entering, it's for that month's production, not the month or the check that you receive in that month. So for January 2020, it would be the final check that you receive in February. It will indicate on it, it's for the pay period or the period of production for January. Agrimark checks say January on them, or the other months. DFA checks say 1/1 to 1/31. So I'm just going to click 1813. If you select other, enter the milk price exactly as it appears, all of the digits on your milk check, you'll upload the file, which I'll demonstrate here in a moment. So I've got a DFA check here. So I'll use this for the June example. So you can see the period is 6/1 to 6/30. So we know that goes in the June line item. The period total is the milk production in pounds. So you enter this exactly, 75,885, and the pay price being 1498,831. So the process of applying is greatly expedited when you have all of your information already digitized, so you can just attach it. So I'm going to go here to June. The federal pay price again was $14,988.31. $14,988.31, and we had 75,885 pounds of production. 75,885. We'll upload that file. So here we go. And it will accept all file types. Some of them take a little bit longer to load. So this is a PNG file, which is an image. It will accept JPEGs, PDFs, Word docs, Excel documents. So any file type. So feel free, if you only have a cell phone as a way to capture check images, that's fine. Use your cell phone to take the picture. Just make sure it's a clear image so that we can see all those numbers. So there's a DFA check, and here is an Agrimark check. You can see June milk up here on the upper right-hand side. The final voucher is important because we need the whole month's production. So I'm just using this as an example. I'm not going to enter another one, but the pay price for Agrimark is in the middle of the check. This is 16.2925 for total pounds of 237,662. So same information, different parts of the check. It needs to be entered exactly as what is on your check. Do not round, do not abbreviate, enter the digits as they appear on the check. If you've applied for USDA's Coronavirus Farmer Assistance Program, or CFAP, that's an FSA application, you check yes. If you did not do that, you would select no. The application takes into account that payment, and so you do not need to do anything else with the CFAP dairy payments from this point forward. I'm just going to select no. If you select yes, again, no information is needed because the system already takes care of it. So then I save my milk table, and you'll see now you've got farm 1 here. You can continue to edit it if you don't have all your milk checks handy, or you want to take another look before you submit it. You can delete it and start over. Then we click next. Contact information. If you want anybody else to receive notifications about your application, you can add them. It brings up a pop-up window with information to fill in. And then the other economic harm section, this is the next section that tends to trip people up. So if you've experienced any other expenses or lost revenue, or both, since March 1st that are directly related to the pandemic, you can claim those here. So as Joanna was saying earlier, you can claim market loss deductions or supply management fees, and I'll just walk through how you input one of those. You can also claim PPE expenses for staff, additional cleaning supplies. If you've changed anything with the way that you actually do your work on the farm, if you had to hire a babysitter because schools were closed, so you weren't able to send your kids to school, which is when you'd normally do your field work or whatever, those are eligible expenses as well. Or if you found yourself doing more of the labor because your workers couldn't come, those are eligible expenses. So think of all the ways that the pandemic has changed the way that you operate your business. So we're going to do a supply management fee example. So I'm going to pull up the DFA check again. So you can see here that there's this overbase line item. This is a June check again. So the overbase line item for this check is currently $5.39 a hundredweight. For this check, it's $456.85. Year to date, $1,109.68. Because we know that this program was not instituted prior to January, and we can also see your January check that you've uploaded, you can use these year-to-date numbers as the proof of total economic harm. So what you're going to do, the price field is the total dollar amount that you want to claim, not the per hundredweight dollar amount. So on this check, it's $1,109.68. So there we go. We'll get that entered in. I'll upload the file again. So even though I've uploaded it in the milk production section, I'll just upload it again here. Well, that's loading. On the Agrimart check, you can see there's a base excess charge. So that would be similar line item there. So you could claim that. It doesn't necessarily show the total amount. So that would be something where you'd want to have an additional document that could show the math for all the months. So here we go. Document is uploaded. The reason is a drop-down menu. You just select one of those, increase cost of operations, and then the reason. So this is your opportunity to tell us what was happening, why we should relate this to the pandemic. So this was a supply management plan by cooperative. And we understand that that was something that was initiated by the co-op. So if you have anything else, you can select any one of these reasons, or we give you 5 sort of free choice line items here. The final question to answer is, has your business applied for or received compensation from any other state, federal, or insurance program for losses or expenses that would you claim here? So this is a duplicative payment question. We can only pay for one loss or expense once. And so if you receive CFAP, do not include that here because you've already accounted for it. But if you receive dairy margin coverage, an economic injury disaster loan, dairy revenue protection, any of those programs is indicated in this little information bubble that comes up, and some that may not be included here. If you are asking for payment for something that you've already received payment for, enter the dollar amount. So you just put that in right here. I'll say $1,000. If you say no, you don't have to enter anything. You click next, and then you're on your application review page. So you can just scroll through, see everything that you've entered. This is a good time to double check that you've entered the right information and the right milk check on the right line item. If you need to go back, you can't navigate to specific sections in it. You just start from the beginning and click through, but your information's all saved. So everything looks good to me. We get to this final page of certification. You are required by law to select one of these. If you click other, then you have to enter in something. So you could say cow health, for example. If you select one of these other ones, you just use the right hand arrow to move it over. So something needs to be in the selected box. And then you read through these legal attestations saying that you understand that this is a legal document, lots of certifications, and then you enter your name, which is considered the same as signing a paper application. Not that we have paper applications, but it's typing your name in here. It takes the same legal weight as an actual signature. And you submit, and you're done. So now you get the confirmation page. You'll immediately get a confirmation email with your application number. And that is as easy as it is to submit an application once you've got all your documentation together. So I do just want to go back here to show you a check again. One common thing that Joanna mentioned that people are attempting to claim is the producer price differential. On this check, you can see it's $5.38 a hundredweight for a deduction of $4,082.61. This dollar amount is taken into account in your pay price. So you are not eligible to claim producer price differential as an additional economic harm or loss of revenue because it is already accounted for. So please do not enter that. We'll be sending it back to you. The same goes for the location adjustment, the market adjustment. All of these things are already taken account into your milk check, and we are unable to provide payment for those. So on the DFA check, the over baseline item, the COVID-19 costs are eligible for addition. And on the Agrimark check, you'll see the base excess charge line that has appeared. That is also eligible. And if you're wondering about how you go about claiming the lost opportunity for making milk because of a supply management plan, on our website, we do, this is the FAQ section. And if you scroll down most of the way, you'll find this table. This is how you account for the reduction in volume of milk that you had to do as a result of a supply management plan. So it's all based on 2019 numbers. So you'll enter, we included March as an example, your volume by month in pounds, your 2020 volume, which should match the information that you put in the milk production section on the table, the difference, so you're just subtracting the two, the price for the month of 2020. So this is the same information from the milk production table. You multiply those two numbers and you come up with a dollar amount. You can add up all the months to date. So it'd be April essentially through August, and you'll get a number in this bottom box, and that is what you will submit as the milk that you were not able to produce due to supply management. And so you will need to upload a document with this table on it and your 2019 milk checks to prove that that is an eligible expense or lost revenue for you to claim. All right, so that was a whirlwind trip through the application. We do have longer webinars available that go through much more slowly, page to page, and an application guide that you can walk through as well as you're going through from each page to the next to cover all of the same information.
Thanks, Laura. You're getting very efficient at that. So now we'd just like to open it up to folks to ask any questions that you have specific to your farm or business or more general, anything that is on your mind that you want to ask. We have both Laura and Diane here who are very knowledgeable about this application and the process. If you're on the computer, there's that toolbar where you can mute and unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon. If you've called in today, it's *6 to unmute yourself, and *6 will mute you again. So the last thing I'll mention is that there is that chat feature as well. So if you'd rather submit your question into the chat feature, you can do so by clicking on the icon on the toolbar. It's third from the right, and we will take any questions that you have. So go ahead and open it up.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So how do we account for milk that we dumped because we couldn't ship it? If it was in, so I'm in the situation where we built a barn last year. We thought we had this Agrimark base, but everything got tied back to 2019. So I've been dumping probably 20% of the milk we've made since this thing started. And how do I account for that?
Caleb, how is it going on the truck first and then getting dumped, or you're choosing to dump that down the drain in the milk house? Which way is that happening?
Like those cows are just like, I milk what I can ship, and then the rest of those cows get milked onto the floor, because otherwise I'd just be, you know, paying whatever. And I've got DHIA test results of like how many cows we're milking and what they're making.
Okay. So you got to have some kind of documentation. So the DHIA records, if you're milking, 500 cows and only 400 of them are going in the tank, kind of thing. I'm winging some numbers here, but
yeah, let's be hypothetical.
Yeah, let's be hypothetical. So that question of that 100 cows worth of milk, you're dumping it. How do you document that milk's being produced but not accounted for in any other way? So you gotta tell us a strong story, and you gotta have some documentation. So you're choosing to put it on the floor versus putting it in the tank and having a deduct on your milk check, which would be easily verifiable potentially. So you're going to need to provide some information to us. DHI records are good. And March, April, May, June, July, August, potentially September. DHI records, how many are you milking? What's your average per cow kind of thing? If you want to drill down even further, that it's the same cows each time they get dumped. Probably not, because that would be difficult, but at least this number of cows is dumped each day, or not put into the tank. Put the DHIA numbers of this number of cows, my average production per cow is this, and the price on that month is the price that you recorded in that milk table. So March 2020 price, April 2020 price, etc. So all that kind of documentation of those numbers would be important. It sounds like you're in a growth phase, so comparing 2019 to 2020 isn't going to be a good comparison to you. It sounds like you're in a growth phase. So that really clear documentation of how many cows, how much milk, and if it's, hopefully if it changes daily, the number of cows, that's a little harder. But if it were somewhat standardized for a month, that it's 10 cows every day, or whatever the numbers are, but getting some averages together and some documentation of cows, that the amount of milk that you think's going on the ground every day, utilizing the price on your milk check for that month's milk, and documenting that all out. So when you go to the document upload, it's one upload, but it can be multiple pages long. And it sounds like this one's going to need to be some multiple pages long. You could give us a block of data up front that says each month how many cows went milked on the floor, how much milk that is, how much the price was for that month, and how much money you think that is. And then the next page could be the DHIA records for each month of the number of cows being milked, the average milk per cow. And the people that are doing this review, they have some knowledge, but where do they need to look on those DHIA records? So putting a circle around something, or
so highlight whatever,
something like that. And look here, here's where the average milk per cow is. Here's how many cows I was milking that month. And so help the reviewers find the data. And then probably the letter from Agrimark that says what your base is for the month as well would be helpful. That why are you putting this milk on the ground? Because Agrimark says you only get 400 cows worth of milk versus 500 cows worth of milk. So that would be helpful to, why is Caleb doing this? He's just choosing to dump the milk on the ground. So because Agrimark says this is your base, that's why you're choosing to put the milk on the ground. So it's kind of that, tell us the whole story. There's a lot of data here that needs to come together to put this whole thing together. So possible, but we got some data together.
And the other thing to keep in mind, Caleb, is that your application doesn't have to be perfect the first time you submit it. So do your best, provide as much information and explanation as you can, and we'll review it and send it back to you with very specific and clear instructions about what you need to do if we're unsure about something.
Great. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Hey, just a quick thought. On your DHIA 202 report, you have that sum of test day weights. I don't know if you can see it.
Right.
It's on that summary sheet, and I think that would be exactly what you need. It's a sum of the test day weights, and then whatever the shipping amount is usually an estimate that's actually shipped, and reported there. So you'd have what you would have the Agrimark slip. So I think that would be pretty easy to do. Actually, I was a little skeptical when you first brought it up, like, oh man, that's gonna suck. But I think that fits the bill.
Okay. Yeah. So I definitely, I got those in the file cabinet. I'll pull them out.
So there was a question in the chat about where this $18.13 come from for January. So the legislature put that number in the statute. So 1813 is a possible selection for January, or you can put in your own milk price for milk produced in the month of January. So we're seeing a lot of milk prices from conventional farmers in the $20 to $22 to $23 range. So 18 isn't the best choice for a lot of folks, and you can choose and document your own milk price. Other questions? Somebody's got their hand up. That's very polite. Nicole? And you might still be muted. Oh, Nicole, do you not want to ask a question? You are still muted if you do want to ask. Okay, other questions? Oh, Leon, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wondered, I think it was Laura who mentioned that you could bring childcare into it. And in our situation, we didn't hire any more help to do childcare, but it took a lot more innovation and time of a couple of grandparents, particularly one, to take care of the kids so that the farm work could get done. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood that could be used as a cost, even though it was not a direct cost.
Hi, Leon, it's Laura. Yeah, so you can include that, put a dollar value to your time. I know sometimes it feels like taking care of kids, you should be paid $1,000 an hour, but something that seems reasonable for what you would consider a wage labor for that. And write up a letter that shows, per month or per week you are spending 10 additional hours or 20 additional hours on childcare, which, overburden the other people on the farm. Just provide us with some documentation about why it was COVID related and the dollar amount and how you came up with that dollar amount. That's really important, is to explain your math to us so we're not guessing, Leon's putting $7,000, but there's no total hour spent or no dollar amount on there per hour, and just include all of that in the other economic harm section.
Okay. And I had one other question. I wonder how do I put this? How do you put in for the fact that because we had help tied up when we were doing our first crop, it took us longer than it would have if everybody had been available. the same as they normally are. And how in the world do you put that into an application like this?
Yeah, so again, if it's people's time, additional time is what you are accounting for, put a dollar amount to it, explain why it took so much longer this year. Maybe it was that you could only have one person in one truck at a time. Whatever it happens to be for the circumstance, just provide us with enough explanation to understand why it was different this year than other years, and why it was directly related to pandemic business changes.
Okay, thank you.
And Leon, did you have a decrease in like the number of bales harvested or anything like that? That usually you get 1,000 bales, and because of not enough help, you lost some quality that you didn't even want to bale anymore because it got rained on 5 times or something like that. That we usually get 1,000 bales and we only got 800 bales because we didn't have enough help to get it in a timely manner, and it was it wasn't even worth baling anymore. If something like that occurred, there's some potential there to, you'd have to get as much documentation as you can. Maybe it's crop reporting to USDA that we usually get this much yield, and because of COVID and weather and not enough help to get the hay in a timely manner, our yield was lower. So there may be some potential there, but it depends on which way it was. Was it hours of work, or was it a reduced yield, or that kind of impact?
It was more lower feed quality because we weren't as timely. And of course, that's a very hard thing to figure out how to put into a document.
Well, yeah, that sure is. Well, I'd suppose if you were working with a nutritionist or a feed company that would make the, do the testing on it, and you get potentially, I don't know if you got records from the year before that your first cut hay is usually so much energy, so much protein, and this year it's really not because of that issue, and because of that you're going to have to buy more grain. But this is all future because you're probably doing a lot of grazing right now, not a lot of stored feed potentially, and so it's a little harder to get that
Right.
that information in a timely manner, because potentially that's all in storage for winter feed, and then the impact will hit, but that's beyond the scope of this program.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Next question.
Diane, you had answered one in the chat here. I wondered if you would just sort of go over that for anybody who might be on the phone and can't see that question that came up.
Sure. There is a question on the application about a duplicative payment. You can't get paid twice for the same expense. So in this application, the state is looking at milk price decline, and that's all that information you put in, comparing stuff back to January. There are lots of lots of programs with USDA that take into account milk prices. One was the Coronavirus Farmer Assistance Program, CFAP. We've already taken care of that at the bottom of the milk table, just saying yes takes care of that. But there's also Dairy Margin Coverage Program. There's also Dairy Revenue Protection Program, and also Livestock Gross Margin for Dairy. Those are 3 different programs at USDA that also cover changes in milk price. So if you took part in any of those programs on your farm and received a payment, because it depends on how you use those programs. It's not an automatic payment on any of those. So Dairy Margin Coverage Program, some people signed up, some people picked the $9.50 margin, and there were some major payments in April and May for sure, a small one in March, but then no payment on that program in June and July. Dairy Revenue Protection, it depended on what you chose. If you did get any payments from those programs, you do have to claim those as duplicative payments in that question at the end of the economic harm section. And those will be deducted off what you get from the state. You can't get paid twice for the same expense. So that's why those are deducted from your state payment.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I have just one question. If we received the $4,000 in EIDG, that also gets counted?
The EDIL or EDIG?
The EID, that it was a grant.
Yep. Okay. That was for some very specific things that you could use that for, I believe. Each of those federal programs had some different things attached to it. The big important thing is what you on this state application choose to claim. You're doing the milk price. Okay, that's one thing. The other
Right.
economic harm, if anything you claim in other economic harm, you use that EDIG or EDIL money to pay for that, then you would have to claim it. So if you used EDIL to pay for electric bill, just for an example, and if you claimed in the state application, I spent this much on electricity for COVID because we added another shift to the milking parlor to cut down on the number of people in the parlor. If you claim that on the state application, you also use the EDIL money to pay for that, you'd have to claim that as a duplicative payment. If you don't claim anything on the state application that you use the EDIL money or EDIG money for, you do not have to claim it. So you just, the big thing about a duplication of payment. You can't be paid twice for the same loss.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we've got about 4 minutes left, so any questions, get those in. All right. People can still chime in. I'm just going to share my screen one more time to go over a couple last slides. So this is just a list of documents needed to complete the application. Joanna had mentioned that she found it really helpful to have all these in line before she sat down to start. And we've heard that from other folks as well. So I think it is worth the effort to try to gather these up and have them at the ready when you start to fill out that application. And these are just some different resources. As I mentioned, the program page on our website is really sort of the best landing spot. It can navigate to all of the different resources available to people to help with this application. They're all listed there, as well as numerous contacts to get answers to questions. There's an application information sheet and an application guide, which will walk you sort of step by step through the different parts of the application, as well as the FAQ document, which is sort of a living document that we are updating all the time as more questions and issues we become aware of. And then the assistant support contacts, again, just some other channels through which you can get answers to the questions that you might have. The Vermont Housing and Conservation Board is also available to help people with this application. So down at the bottom here, you see Mariah Noss' email address and her phone number. That's also on our website and the program page.
So there is a question in the chat, Trevor, that is of interest to some folks here. The second round application. So we're in the middle of testing that right now. We should be able to roll that out next week. You have to finish the first application and get paid before you could do a second application, and you can't have met your cap. So this is limiting. So if folks on the phone and on the webinar haven't finished their first application, this doesn't apply to you yet. It might, but it doesn't apply to you yet. I know there's a few folks on this phone call that are done their first application, got paid, and have not hit their capped amount yet and can apply again. So we're getting that ready to launch next week. There's a question of what to do about pounds of milk and price in September. We're working with our legal counsel. We think we have it finalized. We're going to ask people to estimate their pounds for September, do their best to enter what those pounds of milk are. You've got some documentation potentially in the milk house. You know, that maybe it's complete, maybe it's not. We know the pounds have to be verified at the co-op level. We're asking you, and we'll have a document that we will share that will be from our legal counsel that states that you know that these are estimates for September. We know you don't have the final documentation. You will have until we will send your application back to you incomplete after October 20th, and you have the 7-day turnaround to upload the final information for September's pounds. If you fail to do so, we're going to erase that line item from your application. So there's going to be some timing. I'm paraphrasing big time on what the letter will say, but that's the letter that you will upload instead of a milk check, because you won't have a milk check for September's milk. So we got some work to do to finalize the process, but that's the gist. And then we'll need that final documentation from your cooperatives before the end of October to be able to include that September milk in a payment calculation. So we're almost there. But that when the next second round application is available, there'll be a direct email to those that haven't met their cap. And that will mean that your application is now back in your dashboard and it can be edited. So that will come direct to you. You need to watch your email box, because we're going to also send a second email that has specific instructions on how to do that second application. So a little more work in progress. You'll probably see more on that next week for those who have already gotten paid once and not hit their cap. Once you hit your cap, you're done. So that's a little difference, but that's what's going on.
All right, thanks, Diane. Any last questions that folks have? If not, I just want to thank Joanna for taking some time to join and to share her experience, and Diane and Laura as well for sharing their knowledge about the process. Again, the website is a great place to go with any questions that you might have. Feel free to send us emails or give us a call. All that information is there, and this webinar would be up on that webpage as well in the next day or so. All right, thanks everybody. Have a nice day and stay well.
Thanks.
Thank